No? Don't remember anything about graphing lines? Okay, so when we talked about equations of lines back in the beginning of the year, there was point slope and all that stuff. What are equations of lines typically written in? What's the one that you always comes to mind first? Chris? Yep, that's it. It's typically in slope-intercept form. Okay. What is slope-intercept form? Yeah, y equals mx plus b. And what does m stand for? Your slope. Okay, which in your real life word stories, whatever, you're going to think of that is your rate of change. What does b represent? Perfect, the y-intercept. And in your real life scenarios, that you can think of that as like your starting point. Okay. All right, so let's write some equations of the line given the graph. Okay. And remember, rise over run. So this is where we think of the slope as our change in y over the change in x, right? Okay, so graph number 1. What's my y-intercept? 0, because I'm at the origin, right? And to get to my slope, I'm going to count up to make my little triangle. So I go 1, 2, 3, and then my run is over 1 to the next point. So what's my equation of the line? Y is equal to 3x. Good? Remembering this? All right, Nyla, what's my slope or my intercept for the second one? Perfect. Then Matthew, what would my slope be? What do you think? No, my slope. Okay, so if I start at my y-intercept, I go to the next even point up where the line crosses, and then count that triangle, right? So I'm going down 2, and then over 3. So Randall, what's that give me for my equation then? Perfect. All right. Try 3 on your own for a quick second. Question is that what you got? I see head shaking yes. Awesome sauce. All right, so this time we're going to graph our line because we've given the equation. So, first question to ask is going to be, is it in y equals mx plus b form? Because if it's not, then you have to solve for y. But on our first one, it is, right? So, the next step is going to be to plot our y-intercept. So I go up 2, 3, 4, 5. And then use slope to plot points from the y-intercept. I typically go above and below, but it's up to you how you want to do it. So our slope-intercept was 5. My y-intercept's 5. My slope's negative 3/4. So I'm going to go down to 3, and then over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I'm going to go up to 3, and over 2, 3, 4. And negative slope, which is awesome that my line is going in a negative, so I plotted it right. And then the last step was to connect the points with a line. All right, number 2, I don't have in slope-intercept form. So, Annie, what's the first thing I want to do to get it into slope-intercept form? Absolutely. Let's add 6x to each side because then that cancels. And I'm left with 2y is equal to 6x minus 2. Perfect. Jordan, what do I want to do next?
Divide by 2.
Yep. And I need to divide everything by 2. And so then y is equal to 3x minus 1. Awesome. Alrighty. Reagan, what do I want to do? What's my y-intercept? Perfect. What's the slope? Perfect. So I plot my negative 1. And then I'm going to go up 2, 3, and over 1. And let's connect. Feeling good? All right, try number 3 on your own then. Is that what you got? Yes. Good catch. Roughly. Did I make any other mistakes? Awesome. All right, then let's go over our special lines. Special lines are our vertical and horizontal. Vertical lines have what kind of slope? Anybody, go ahead. Speak it out. Undefined. Perfect. Okay? And it always cuts through the x-axis. Right? So your equations always are going to be x is equal to your x-intercept. So for instance, on this particular line, we have an x-intercept at 2, and so my equation is going to be x equals 2. Good? Horizontal line, what's my slope? Kaylee, what's my slope of my horizontal line? Absolutely. So what do you think it cuts, which axis does it cut through? Anybody? Yeah, perfect. And it's the same thing with the equation, except for it's y equals the y-intercept. And so 2, 3, 4. So this one's y is equal to 4. So for number 1, since my y-intercept is 4, my equation is going to be y equals 4. Which then gives me a 0 slope. So what's the equation for number 2? Hayden.
X equals 7.
Perfect. And what's my slope? Yeah. And then when we graph, we're going to do the same thing. I have x equals negative 7. So if I mark my x-intercept, that's going to tell me that my line is undefined. This ringing bells? Easy peasy. And since my y-intercept is 9, that gives me a 0 slope. All right, good with those? Question? I think in my mind I did have a negative. Remember those? Feeling okay? So equations of the lines, graphing, you all feel good with those? I see lots of yes, easy peasy. All right, awesome. What do you remember about inequalities? You didn't like them. Graphing them? Oh, it's your favorite, and you know it. Okay, graphing your linear inequalities. It's the exact same thing. You do it as at the line. It just is whether it's a solid or dotted line. And then you have shading. Okay, so if it is less than or greater than, you're going to use a dotted line. If it's less than, then, whoops, throwing papers all over the place. If it's less than, then you're going to shade down or below the line. Okay? If it's greater than, you shade up or above, whichever you want to however you want to think of it. Okay? All right, so I need to put in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to subtract 2x, and I'm left with negative y is less than negative 2x plus 5. Am I in slope-intercept form yet? No, why? Because I can't have a negative y. So how do I get rid of a negative y? Multiply or divide by negative 1, whichever way your brain wants to think about it. That's cool. And what happens when you multiply or divide by a negative? What was that? Yeah. By a negative number, you got to flip that sign. So that means my equation becomes y is greater than 2x minus 5. Do we agree with that? All right, let's graph it. So negative 5 is my y-intercept. I go up 2 over 1. And since it's greater than, I'm going to use a dashed line. And since it's greater than, I'm going to go above or up to shade. Okay. What if you're having to graph one of these and you don't remember the rule about the above or below? What should you do? If it's facing that way, always, yes, that's true. If that's true, if y is on that side. Here's where I was going. But yes, that's correct. You can use a test point. Okay? Pick any point you want. All right? Personally, I like 0, 0 because it makes it super easy. Put it into your equation. So 0 is greater than 2 times 0 minus 5, which simplifies to 0 is greater than negative 5. Is that true? Yeah. So since it's true, it's in the shaded area. Okay? All right, let's do the next one. So x is less than or equal to negative 6. So that means my x-intercept's negative 6. Since it's less than or greater than, I use a solid line. But the down or below and the up and above, that stays the same. The only difference is now I'm using a solid line. Okay. Now, I have down, let's see, it's less than or equal to, so it says down or below, but my line's going straight up and down. What's considered down or below? You guys are all pointing. What do you? Less than, right? Yeah, because it's all the numbers down or below my 6. But I don't trust myself, so I'm going to use a test point, and I'm going to use 0, 0 again. And so if I use 0, 0, I would have 0 is less than or equal to negative 6. Is that true or false? That's false. 0 is not less than negative 6. So it's not in the shade area. How do you feel about these? Good? All right. Have you tried these 3, the bottom? Let's try those. then, once we check those, we can work on our practice, which are going to be the odds.